Hello, everyone. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to another episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Walker. Thank you so much for joining us. Another week done, another race in the books. We are now in May. By the time you hear this, it is going to be May 1st. So I'd like to say we're in spring running season, but whoa, we have been in spring running season. Races are left, right, and center every weekend, multiple opportunities to get out there and run. So hopefully you're out there finding whatever race tickles you the most. We just did a new race this weekend, and honestly, I'm gonna be super honest. And if anyone from this race is listening, and your first thought is, "Wow, this guy sucks," give me a second. So this weekend was the Top City Half Marathon in Topeka, Kansas. Not gonna lie, I was not at all looking forward to this race. I am not the biggest fan of Topeka. I've not gone down there and had just wonderful experiences. It's great, mildly important for the state of Kansas, but that's not my town. That's not my place. So running a half marathon down there, I thought, this is gonna kind of stink. We're gonna have to go run through Topeka. I got to get up even earlier. I got to make the drive down there. Got to hit the stinking toll road on the way down there. And I wasn't looking forward to it, but I am so glad that I went. It was a great race. This is why I said, if you were listening to bear with me, you guys did a great job. The Top City Half Marathon, applause to you. Yes, that is for you at the Top City Half Marathon. Well done. You guys put on a great race. So here's what happened. I get up and I drive down to Topeka. It is a beautiful morning. I mean, beautiful. The weather was perfect for this race. So I get down there, and it's a little chilly. It's, before 7 a.m. when I get there. Sun's not even up yet, so it's kind of chilly. They had, in this big courtyard where we were all gathering before the race, they had this nice big gas fire pit, all lit up, and of course, all lined with runners around it. So that was beautiful. Had a nice little fire pit, got to stay warm while we're waiting for the sun to pop up. This was in downtown Topeka, so there were some higher buildings around. It took a little longer for the sun to get to us, but no big deal. That fire pit was very nice. I got to sit around, and I got to talk to people before the race. There's a lot of people down there who maybe don't always come up to Kansas City, so we talked to some new folks down there. That was really nice. Actually got to meet a runner down there doing his very first half marathon. Turns out that this guy is a professional boxer. So if you listen, big shout out to my guy, John. John Cantrell is his name. I don't mind giving out his name because he is basically a public figure who has had professional fights. You might have seen him on Showtime. But yes, met John down there running his very first half marathon. Checked in with him after the race. He beat his projected time by 10 minutes. So great job. Sounds like he had a good run. So congrats to you, John. I hope you enjoyed the experience and you come back for more races. I think you said, you've got a fight coming up in Mexico soon, so good luck to you. I have always said that my fans here, the fans of the Back of the Pack podcast, are like the most badass fans ever, and now even more so. Now my fans can beat up your fans. Anyway, so that was fun. Talked to him for a while before the race. That was great. Ran into Cody down there, ran into a lot of our friends, so that was fun. So it's finally time to line up. We all get to the start line. We're ready to go. They, play the national anthem, sound the horn, and off we go. The course was great. Like, I was really worried. I thought this was going to be some kind of hilly monster of a course. No, not bad at all. The course was nice. You get to run through some nice areas of Topeka. You get to run by some very nice houses, nice parks, just kind of nice areas all in general. The aid stations were good. They were where they were supposed to be. Got your water, continued on. More crowd support than I had expected, and a huge kudos to all the volunteers out there, the course monitors and some of the aid station people, but and even the police department, they were all very encouraging, very, yay, good job, go team, supportive people just out course monitoring. So that was cool. Okay, I'm going to sidebar right here, everyone. I don't ever go back, and I'm sorry, if you're listening for the Top City review, I got a sidebar because I just said it. I don't ever go back and listen to my episodes of the podcast because I cannot stand the sound of my recorded voice. For whatever reason, just because I wanted to see what I covered and what I didn't, because I couldn't quite remember, I listened to last week's episode about the Boston Marathon. For whatever reason, and apparently I'm doing it again this week, I am way overusing cool. The that's cool, this is cool, that was cool, whatever. I way overused it last week, so I apologize. Now I've already thrown one in there this week, so I apologize for that. I need to sit down and read a thesaurus and find other ways to get that term across, but I'm very sorry for my overuse of the term cool. I'm going to try and knock that off. Cool? Got ya. Anyway, okay, I'm sorry. So back to the top cities. So the course monitors were great. Police department were great. Everyone, I felt very safe the times we had to cross roads. Streets were blocked. Not a lot of problems with traffic. There was just one road where traffic was getting a little frisky with us, and it was getting close to the finish line as we're going back into downtown Topeka. So I get it. Like, I kind of understand. Like, I know, as I was told, some of the locals in Topeka were not exactly thrilled about having things shut down and rerouted on a Saturday morning. I am sure this is not a normal thing down there. I seriously doubt they put on a whole bunch of races. I probably would have heard of them if they did. So apparently there was a little disgruntled traffic situation going on. I get it. It's a mild inconvenience on a Saturday morning, whatever. So there was really only one little tiny stretch of road where we kind of had to worry about the traffic situation, but then we turned off. Really fun for us to actually run through the Capitol. Yeah, like not through the building itself, but we would turn left into their own private little driving area and kind of did a lap around the Capitol and came out their gated part on the other side. But that was really neat. And if you follow us on Facebook and you follow a lot of the local runners, you'll see a lot of pictures that people took of the Capitol because we ran right through it. We went right underneath one of their car parks and around the building, and that was a different experience. So we got to go through the Capitol. Me personally on this race, I say I'm mad about it, although I understand why it was the way that it was. I missed a new half marathon PR by 49 seconds. 49 seconds faster, I would have had a new PR, which means I would have PR'd for each race. I've PR'd for a 5K, a 10K, and a full, all within the last calendar year from where we sit right now here on May 1st. I almost added half marathon to that, but I was 49 seconds off. Not gonna lie, that last 5K of the race, my legs were done. I had only 12 days since Boston. My legs were not back at 100%. And of course, I hadn't been able to train the way that I normally would because my legs were not back to 100%. But I missed a half marathon PR by 49 seconds. While that stinks, I'm not too terribly upset because I just ran a full marathon. You got to be able to cut yourself a break somewhere in there. Yes, we want to PR every race that we ever run. We always want our races to be faster than the ones before it. That is not always going to be the case. So we cannot always beat the tar out of ourselves for not achieving that goal. It is a personal record for a reason. It does not mean you break it every single time. Yes, I am talking to myself more than anyone else right now because I'm still mildly miffed that I missed that PR. But whatever, we continue on. So again, I had a good performance personally. I know a lot of the other runners had good performances personally. I thought that was a very nice course. I don't want to say easy. Running 13.1 miles is never easy, but that was on the easier side of courses that I have run around this area. So I really hope that they do this race next year. If they do this race next year, I 100% am going to be back for it. And if I don't PR by then I plan on PRing this course next year because it is a very PRable course. So there is the high recommendation, high praise for the Top City Half Marathon in Topeka, Kansas. And again, that was the very last of April. I hope that they will come back next year, run that race again because I enjoyed it. Hopefully they'll have a bigger crowd. So Back to the Pack podcast listeners, recommend that course. Keep an eye out for it. If they do it next year, let's go. Let's go get it done. So last week we had the Boston Marathon episode. Had a few follow-ups to that people kind of asked about. So we're going to knock that out of the park right now. The first one, and look, if you're not in on the joke, and honestly, I'm sure everyone is in on the joke. I, for a period, got very excited talking about a particular marathon on the East Coast in the city so nice they named it twice. Producer Katie now cringes anytime I mention the New York Marathon because she got really tired of hearing about it. I get it. That's fine. I got a little excited about it. Yeah, I like to share things. I was asked to compare the crowds from the Boston Marathon to the New York Marathon. So even though it is going to make producer Katie grit her teeth, I must mention for a small period here today, the New York Marathon. Now, is it an extra added benefit to me that it drives her nuts and then I get to laugh about it? Yes, it makes my heart happy to know that she's now gritting her teeth and despising me at this moment. But this isn't intentional. I was asked to do this. So anyway, I do enjoy giving producer Katie a hard time. I bet you guys have picked up on that maybe once or twice. So anyway, okay, so the crowds. The crowd difference between Boston and New York, because people ask me which crowd was better. And honestly, you can't pick one. They are both great, but for different reasons. And what are you talking about? A crowd is a crowd. Well, yes and no. And here's how I break it down. The New York Marathon crowd was electric. The energy that you got from that crowd, they win. Like they win that competition. If you're talking about energy, electricity, just feeling the people kind of move you down the road, then the title goes to the New York Marathon. Now, the difference, if you're talking Boston, and if you are talking the support of the crowd, and the people who are, they're not just cheering you because it's a great day and they're out having fun, but the people who are supporting every runner and wanting you to achieve your absolute best, almost on a personal level, then that goes to Boston. Because while the New York fans are standing out there going apeshit, pardon my French, and they are, and they do, and they were for me, the Boston fans are lining the course. They are bringing out their own water for aid stations. They are handing out the pretzels or the Vaseline or the Kleenex or the Bomb Pops or the Jolly Ranchers or the Starburst. They're trying to give you what you need to complete the course. And while it might not just be that motivational electricity of New York, it is, you could argue maybe it's more important, but it is the things that you physically need to continue down the road. Of course, the emotional support is there as well. You know, you got this, great job, you do, and they're doing their best. It's not just random, we're screaming for everyone. They try and address you as you go by, which is why I didn't do this and I didn't think about it till after the fact. So many people, because the Boston bibs did not have your name on it, a lot of people would like put duct tape or some kind of tape over their shirt with their name on it so that the crowd would have something to cheer. So I was wearing the Believe headband from the show Ted Lasso. So I was called Believe for the whole time. And you can only imagine how many Believe jokes were thrown in my direction. I believe you believe in fish, believe. And it was great. I honestly should have put Kyle on my shirt so that people would at least call me by my name. But they're looking for something. They want something to help motivate you to get to the top of the hill or get to the next mile marker or to the aid station or down the hill or you're almost there. The Boston crowd was way more supportive in that you know they want you to succeed. They want you to finish. They want you to finish strong. They want you to have your best race. They want you to enjoy this race. The New York people are just going to scream and go nuts. And you are going to totally get by on their energy. And in Boston, you get by on their support. So that's the big breakdown between the two. And I'm sorry, Chicago Marathon, you guys are a distant third. I know that you say you have great crowd support, and I thought your crowd support was very nice, but you are a distant third behind Boston and New York that are now tied for number one for those two very different reasons that I just gave. So I cannot sit here and tell you which one was better. Now, if you are also a runner who has done both races, if you have both New York and Boston, to your credit, I would love to know what you think. I would love to know if you agree with that statement, if you disagree, if you can put one above the other, because I cannot. If you've done them both, share with me, because I'd be very curious to see what other people think about that.
Greetings and salutations. Oh, wait, I'm not Kyle. This is producer Katie, and I wanted to come on real quick and mention to you guys that our race coming up on September 17th, the KC Hustle Run, is in need of sponsorships. If you know of any individuals or businesses looking to sponsor something for a really good cause, because you know, guys, we are doing this for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and we'd really like to be able to present them with a nice big check at the end of this. So, if you could put the word out there for anybody looking to help sponsor a really amazing race for a really amazing cause, to go to kchustlerun.com and look for the sponsor tab and take a look. Reach out to us. We'd be happy to hear from you. Okay, now I'll let you go back to listening to Kyle, I guess.
And then the second thing that I was asked about, and boy, does this one chafe my hide. Boston caught a lot of heat, and it was national news that they ran out of medals. They ran out. They did not have enough finisher medals for the people who crossed the finish line. I know one person personally who was on my charity team who did not get a medal when she completed the race. And when I ran into her after the race, she was crushed by this. Now, I know that later, and I was not around when this happened, I know that later, a veteran runner of the Boston Marathon gifted my charity teammate a medal and said, here, you take it. I can wait for when they get more in. And to Boston's credit, they've already sent out multiple emails saying, hey, if you didn't get one, let us know now. It's on the way. So thankfully, the situation was made right, but they caught a lot of grief for the fact that they ran out of medals, and rightfully so, I thought at first. Now the articles are coming out on the sheer number of people who bandited the Boston Marathon. And look, I'm getting on my soapbox here. Pardon me for a moment as I step up. Earmuffs, kids. To any sad sack, sorry sons of bitches who went out there and bandited the Boston Marathon, I do not wish mean things on people. I hope the ribbon around that medal that you did not deserve breaks. I hope that it gets a big scratch across the unicorn's head. I hope you lose it in your luggage. I cannot believe that there are people so low as to bandit the Boston Marathon. And here's how they did it. And people have been caught. There's articles about this. They were manufacturing fake ass bibs, that look convincing enough to get to the start line and to get through. And look, there was a lot of security at the start line. They were looking at everyone's bib. But I'm looking at some of the pictures of these people who have been caught. They're like pinning it to their shorts, and it's kind of crinkled up, and they're kind of their shirts hanging over it. They did everything they could to hide this. But what's being found out is, all the pictures are released, and people are going to the website, and they're pulling up their bib number and looking for their pictures, and they're seeing pictures of other people wearing their bib. So they've made these good enough counterfeit bibs that they were able to get into the starting line. They were able to run the Boston Marathon, and then they took the finisher medals that they did not deserve at the end. And look, I know the argument can be made, although no one's going to make it to my face. Well, they still did the race. They should have gotten a medal, right? Or, hey, they still had to run 26.2 miles. I don't care. If you bandit the Boston Marathon, the hell with you, man. You don't deserve a medal. You don't deserve to cross that finish line. You don't deserve a picture taken of you. All right? You didn't earn the chance to get in there. I didn't either. I didn't qualify. I'll never sit here and say I qualified for Boston, but you guys raised an F ton of money so that I could run that race. I deserve to be there through your generosity. Other people deserve to be there because they trained and busted their asses to get the qualifying times needed to get to Boston. Then we all paid our travel expense, and we all dedicated our time to training and the commitment to be at that start line and riding those buses up to Hopkinton and being out there on a shitty weather day. We deserved it. You banditing people who went out there with fake bibs, fully aware that you were screwing the system, the heck with you. You guys are scum of the running world, and I don't want any association with any of you, not that I have any, at least none that I'm aware of. But if you are ever sitting here thinking about banditing a race, and look, there are people who will go run a 5K just because the course is closed. Most of them don't take medals at the end because they know they didn't sign up for it. Like, is there a gray area? You could argue there's a gray area. I'm a little more black and white on this, and especially when it comes to the Boston Marathon. You rat bastards had no business being on that course. You had no business with those numbers on your chest because those weren't your numbers. And you sure as hell had no business. Taking that medal at the finish line when someone handed it to you and then posting little pictures like you did something. You didn't do shit. You lied. You lied to everyone. And so that's why there was a shortage of medals. And that's why those scum don't deserve medals. And I hope that the marathon, as fast as humanly possible, can get medals to those who earned and deserved them because they did it the right way. And boy, if you can find the jackwagons who cheated, take their medals and burn their running shoes. So there is my opinion of the great medal shortage of the 2023 157th running of the Boston Marathon. So there's that. Now, pardon me, I'm going to take a couple steps backwards. I'm going to descend from my soapbox so that we can get back down to business. Last thing of this week, because I know I went on a bit of a rant there, I have been struggling, and I addressed it in last week's episode because it was just kind of a thing in the back of my mind at that point. Well, in this past week, it has become a big thing in the front of my mind, and I've been asking myself this question: what do you do after you climb Mount Everest? After you reach the pinnacle of what it is you've wanted to accomplish, what do you do afterwards? And I've been reading because it's nice to know that I'm not wrong or kind of messed up in my feelings. There is a physiological letdown. There, like your body does things after you accomplish what in your mind has been kind of the end all be all of what it is you're doing, of what it is you're training for, what it is you're striving for. Again, I've told you for 13 years, I've been striving to somehow get to the Boston Marathon. Rightly or wrongly, and people have disagreed with me, Boston was the number one race in my book. I feel like you were not a serious marathoner unless you've done Boston. And again, that is taking no shots at anyone who has not done Boston. Everyone ranks things differently. When I got into running and when I was doing all my research years and years and years ago, what I found was that there was no greater race. There was no more mystique. There was no more higher achievement than that of the Boston Marathon. So when I made up my mind years and years ago, I placed Boston at number one. And I said to myself, and I know it was me because I recognized my voice, self, in my mind, there is no greater race than the Boston Marathon. That's what I want to accomplish with this decision to be a runner. That is the top. There's nothing higher. I made that decision for me. Your decision might be different, and I respect your decision 100%, and I'm never even going to try and tell you you're wrong, because you're not. If you have a race that you rank higher, tell me what it is, because I want to chase that race as well. But there is actually emotional, physical, psychological letdown after you climb your Everest, after you do what it was that you thought was unattainable, that you have always wanted to do. And so I've been looking into it. And here's some stuff that I found that I'm going to share with you. Because if you get to that point, maybe you've been there, maybe you're on the other side of it. But if you spend so much time looking forward to something and training for something and trying to accomplish something, and then you get it, it's like, well, what do I do now? And again, like I said, last week, it was just something I mentioned on the show. And I've been wrestling with it ever since. So here's something that I found. This is just from a website called Inc. I know this is kind of a business website, but it pertains. So why success puts you down in the emotional dumps. Psychologically speaking, a goal can give us a powerful sense of direction and order. It satisfies the natural desire for something to do, and we feel good as we progress and check off milestones. But perhaps more importantly, goals can affect our overall sense of connection and purpose. We assign positive attributes such as intelligence, perseverance, curiosity, and independence to being active or engaged in something. All this helps us feel that when we have work, we also have personal value and place a role in the group. We can even define ourselves by the work. The evidence of this is how we respond when someone asks what we do for a living. We say, I am a doctor, writer, marketer, runner, marathoner, Boston Marathon finisher, connecting a state of being with our job titles. Again, like I said, this is kind of professional, but in the running world, there is something to be said when you can say, I am a Boston Marathon finisher. Okay? Even if you haven't done it, even if you have no interest, if someone tells you that and you are in this running world, there's weight. There is weight that comes with that. We continue on. So what happens when the objective you worked so long and hard for is suddenly behind you? All those links disappear. We can't define ourselves the way we did before. We suddenly have time we don't know how to fill. We can't even periodically look in the mirror and pat ourselves on the back anymore. We question ourselves in a million ways. 100% true. I've been living this for the last week and a half. This is 100% true in what they're saying. And if all that seems too simple, you have neuroscience kicking you in the face while you're down. The brain releases dopamine, a hormone associated with both motivation and happiness, in anticipation of a reward. So when you plan and know you're going to work for something, you're in biological position to feel good. Each milestone gives you another dopamine hit, which makes you want to keep going with the job or the race. But when you reach your goal, that release of dopamine drops. It's harder for you biochemically to have joy. Holy crap. This is, you guys getting this? Like, this is crazy. Grasping that anticipation of reaching your goal can release soothing dopamine. Sometimes people also experience what's known as the arrival fallacy. If you are ridiculously sure you're going to reach the goal, you essentially can trick your brain into behaving like you've already reached the end. The work already seems done or like a mere formality. So dopamine starts to drop off before it otherwise would. Then when you actually get to the finish line, it doesn't feel as satisfying. In the worst case scenario, this can lead you desperately hopping from goal to goal, hoping something, anything will make you really happy. And so that there's a little bit of truth to that too. Now, for me, the Boston Marathon, of course, I was completely jazzed the day of. But like I was saying last week, and like I've told people before, when I got to Boston, and especially like the Saturday and Sunday before the race, it kept hitting me that there was nothing more I could do. There was nothing else I could do to prepare for this race. I couldn't get in one more run. I couldn't, find a way to, massage the legs, or I couldn't fix my diet. I couldn't lose 5 more pounds. There was nothing I could do to be more ready. There was nothing. And I know that that's tapering, and everyone hates tapering if you've ever gone through that process, but it really is kind of it messes with your head. So here are 5 tips that this place has on getting yourself going again. And again, I'm sharing these with you. I'm still in my own headspace on what's next for me, on how these pertain to me personally, but I want to share them because I am sure there are people who have felt this way, like I said, and people who will once they get that white whale, whatever that might be for them. So 5 ways to get going again and prevent more blues in the future. Number 1, come up with lots of baskets. We usually associate the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket, with money and investment, but it's true for goals too. If you have other things you're working on simultaneously, then when one project or goal gets done, you can switch gears and refocus instead of being empty. I think this one is huge. And so I've actually been working on my baskets. Now, we're going to talk more about the Berlin Marathon stuff later. There's developments with that. We're going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk on that right now. But that's a basket. I have been asked and agreed that I am going to be doing the Shawnee Mission Triathlon in July. So triathlon training, that's a basket. This podcast, a basket. The KC Hustle Run, getting sponsors, getting the race done, that's a basket. So I am making a lot of different baskets for myself because for so long, basically from, I think it was September 2022 through a week and a half ago, my basket was the Boston Marathon. That was my all-encompassing thought. And I know I had a few other things popping up here and there, but let me tell you, just being honest with you, it's not where my primary focus was. So I'm creating baskets so that when one basket is done, let's say the eggs go off to market, choose whatever analogy you want, there are other ones so that I don't just sit there and go, oh, what do I do now? Number 2. Create a sequence. If time or logistics means you can't invest in multiple simultaneous projects, set out a logical sequence for what's going to follow your current work. You'll learn to mentally associate the end of the initial project with the start of the next, so that concluding the beginning work feels more like a milestone rather than a total termination. Do what you can to make the transition between the projects as smooth as possible. such as gathering supplies or information as soon as you can. In the runner world, this is like, okay, I'm getting ready for Rock the Parkway. And after I get done with Rock the Parkway, I know that I'm still in training for Top City. And okay, now that I'm done with Top City, I know that we've got the Bill Snyder Highway half marathon coming up. And then, okay, after that, then we're on to Hospital Hill. So, when kind of one project one period of I'm training for this race ends, you already know that you're training for another one. You already have them lined up. Pause and reflect. This one's the most difficult. Sometimes when you finish something big and you don't really have any other goals, you can get overwhelmed wondering if you've peaked or if the time you spent was worthwhile. Take the time to look back and identify what you learned or how you grew. Be specific about what you appreciated or didn't about the experience. Then take your growth and learning list and come up with a way to apply your new knowledge or skills. The idea, as with sequencing above, is to clarify that there's a link from the past to your future, okay? Pause and reflect, very difficult. Somebody asked me, since I've been home, maybe a week ago, has it set in that you're a Boston Marathon finisher? My answer then was no. My answer now is still no. It still really hasn't set in. But, all this kind of letdown and what do I do now has set in, but not that I've finished the Boston Marathon. And I did it right, and I didn't bandit it, you bastards. But I finished the Boston Marathon, and I have to kind of keep saying it to myself so that I ultimately believe it. Number 4, another difficult one. Take some time to find you. Yes, the goal you had was part of you, but just one part. If you've overly focused on the objective, you've probably gotten out of touch with other parts of your identity. Think about the principles you believe in, what you do if you never had to work again, or run again, I guess, or when you feel the most excited. So, yes, we as runners, a lot of times, running is our identity. It is kind of who we are. It's a big piece of who we are, but it is not the total of who we are. And sometimes, especially like if you're dealing with injury or you're done with a big race and maybe you're taking some time off, you kind of have to remember who you are when you are not running. Like, who are you on a Saturday morning when you're not driving to that 5K or to that 10K or to that half or, even to the full? Who are you on the weekends when you don't have a race? I don't know, something to think about. And then number 5, last one, mentor. I can't even say that. Generativity. Never heard that one. Generativity is the psychological idea that you'll pass on what you've learned to someone else so they can achieve like you did. When you mentor after a big goal and share your insights, it's easier to feel like the work will be lasting and have a real influence. I don't know. Maybe you could do a podcast and talk about your experiences in the area in which your podcast resides. I don't know. That's just an idea. Maybe if you've been running for a long time, you should try and tell everyone about the really dumb mistakes that you've made so that they won't make them. Like hydrating before running with the cows last year. You guys should definitely hydrate before you did running with the cows last year. So, I don't know what this mentor thing is. Anyway, so no, I got to say I agree with that one because that's why I started this podcast over a year ago, is to try and use what I've done in my now many years of running to help others and maybe help them avoid mistakes, or even if I can just be a motivational or somehow informational force, then again, all worth it in the end. So that's where I'm at in my journey. I don't know where you are in your journey. I hope that you are, doing well, either training for what's coming up, or if you've actually reached that lifelong goal, what are you doing now? What are you kind of aiming for? Again, I love the basket idea. The basket idea of finding a few different things that are important to you, and you're working on these several different things all at the same time, so that you're not sitting around where you just have the one focus, you just have the one finish, and then you're left feeling like, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do now because it's over. And so that's where I'm at. That's where I struggle. Again, we've got some things coming up. We've got other things to talk about. I've got some ideas, but, all good things in due time. So pretty soon we're going to have the folks back on from the Fighting Fentanyl 5K. We did that last year. They were actually the first run to ever grace our show with their presence. So we can't wait to have Libby back on from Fighting Fentanyl 5K. That's coming up in June. I would love to see you out there. It's in Shawnee. It's at Mill Valley High School. Great cause, great group, great race. We're really going to try and get a good turnout this year. And I would love to see some folks out there in their Back of the Pack podcast shirts. or your KC Hustle Club shirts. That would just make me exceedingly happy. So that's my plug. Our next race we have coming up. Oh, the Cass County 5K for Health. Those folks were on a few weeks ago. Their race is coming up this Saturday. So that's where I will be on Saturday morning, is in Belton, running the Cass County 5K for Health. And then on Sunday morning, it's a 2-race weekend, the Outpacing Melanoma 5K at Corporate Woods in Overland Park. We will be out there as well. I know I will see a lot of you out there. That's a very big race. Good cause. So hopefully I will get to catch up with everyone this weekend and see your smiling faces. Other than that, make sure you're following us all on social media, Facebook and Instagram under Back of the Pack Podcast. Those are our 2 biggest things. And again, we're meeting more and more people. Met our boxing buddy out there at the race, and then talked to a gentleman, David, after the race, who was told about the podcast. He's new to running, and is definitely a faster runner than me. So it was very nice to meet him. We're doing well. You know what? We're doing well, y'all. And I really appreciate everyone's help. As always, whenever somebody says that they heard about the podcast through a referral, their friend told them about it, one of our ambassadors, someone said, hey, go talk to that guy wearing the silly head thing. That would be me. I love it all. And I'm so thankful anytime you value this podcast enough to tell someone you personally know about it. That's huge. That's how we grow. That's how we get bigger. It's all about the references at this point, and I appreciate it. So that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Back of the Pack podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Walker. It is my pleasure, as always. This show is brought to you by OKKC Sports, and it is produced by Katie O'Neill, who is going to hit me over the head with a New York apple or something along those lines. So we'll be back next week. We've got a 2-race weekend. We'll talk about all that, and then we'll see what other fun and frivolity we can get into. Everyone have a great week of training, and we'll see you next week.